Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Darryl.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, what's going on? This is Tim Kennedy. You are listening to The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yeah, thanks, man, for coming on. A couple old Warrior guys. You're in way better shape than I am, but I try hard. So that's going to be my thing. Man, you are impressive, dude. That's you've been all over the podcast world. Tim Ferriss's show, I was watching that today, listening to you talk. You've sat across from Lance Armstrong. You're a Special Forces, a Ranger, a Special Forces guy, a Bravo. Holy shit, a professional fighter with a crap load of victories, a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Man, what an impressive body of work. And you're not even old or nothing yet. Congratulations. Way to go.
Well, all the things that you just said, that was the nicest thing that you said. Not old yet. I like that part.
No, but seriously, so look, guys, in case you don't know, I got 1,000 combat patrols, right? So I've been out a lot. My body, I'm approaching 50, but my body is really mad at me. You know, my ears don't work very good. My eyes are starting to fail. My hips, my knees, my back, everything is really beat up. And you're not old, but you're not that much younger than me. So how the heck are you able to maintain that? Are you just built like heavy duty, or what do you think it is? What do you attribute it to? Because I
think genetics definitely plays a role in it. You know, I come from good stock of a lot of athletes in my family, to include, Olympians and, Hall of Famers that are, my immediate family.
Yeah.
So definitely good genetics. And then, you were saying, like, how do you keep it up? Well, man, I just keep it up. I'll train 2 times today. I'll train 2 times tomorrow. I'll train 2 times on Wednesday. I'll train 2 times on Thursday. I'll only train 1 time on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, today I got up early, had a good breakfast, went and worked out. Then I went to the shooting range. I trained for 2 hours. Then I've been working for the past 3 hours. And now I'm talking to you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you squeezing me into that busy schedule. So when you're talking about shooting, do you just work on a variety of skills? Like, do you do like 9mm work, or are you working more on long rifle, or do you mix it up?
Today I was doing failure drills. So like target doesn't go down, and you're transitioning to a different point of aim for, hopefully a different effect.
Yeah.
So I set up 3 different targets, and I was working failure drills. One of them had a body armor on. So I'd shoot the body armor, and then I'd move to a different point of aim. And then I was doing immediate action. So like type 1 malfunctions, both with the pistol and with the rifle. So, you pull the gun up and it goes click.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? So, you're tap rack banging and working through the mechanics of that. And so I loaded a bunch of magazines with dummy rounds, and then just worked through magazine after magazine after magazine of immediate action type 1 malfunctions.
I love it. I love it. I love being able to talk to guys like you, because I've touched in your world. So I was a counterintelligence guy, so I did a lot of time, like I said, on patrols with you guys, with SEALs, that kind of thing, in support. And so I got to go out and shoot. Just mostly messing around. Those guys are actually working on stuff. And then as a regular Army guy, to get a chance to do something besides stand still and hold my breath and shoot, it's a pretty big deal. And I tell a lot of my friends, like when we talk about active shooter situations at school, like if you've got a pistol and there's hundreds of targets running around and you don't want to shoot them, that shot. Now listen, I talking to a guy that knows how to shoot and everything, like anything more than 10 meters out with all those variables amped up, the average person isn't trained to deal with that.
Yeah, that's a choice though.
Yeah.
Like you're only as trained as you want to be. There's hundreds of really high level shooting instructors out there. Johnny Primo from Course of Action, to Travis Lloyd teaches with Sheepdog Response, to John McPhee, Sheriff of Baghdad, Matt Glover, Fieldcraft Survival, Frank Proctor.
Yeah.
Just the list goes on and on and on and on. Like, I go to those courses.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was at the Christmas Carol at the Zach Theater here in Austin. And I have my whole family with me, my brother's with me, my sister's with me, their kids with them, my daughter's with me, my 3-year-old's with me, my wife's with me. As soon as we sat down, I identified where the best place to have cover was. There was these vertical they're like 4 feet thick steel beams that went up the center on each of the corners, or the cornerstones of the auditorium. Well, that's where I'm shoving my family, and that's where I'm shooting from. Right. So like, I say you're only as prepared as you want to be. Like, yeah, I'm gonna enjoy a Christmas Carol, but it's your individual responsibility to make sure your family's safe. So as soon as I sat down, I already knew where I was going. I already figured out how I was getting out, and I already knew where I was going to be shooting from. I had the only 2 ways into the building I could see from where I selected my seats. I don't think there is such a thing as a victim. You've either prepared for it or you haven't. So you're either ready for it, and even if you lose, you're still not a victim.
Right.
Like if I was in that building and I shoot that guy that came in there, does that make my family members that are with me victims of an active shooter situation? No, dude, their dad just murdered a bad dude.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Friday.
Sounds like a Friday. But I mean, if we're talking about a bunch of kids, though, they are victims if they're there to be at school, right? So that SRO has a lot of jobs, and you and I both know the level of work it takes to be proficient in an active shooter situation. It's not 1 hour a week, and ain't nobody got a budget to train a Tim Kennedy all the time like you want to be trained to be prepared for that. I don't have a sense for it, but maybe you do. What would it cost to get that deputy, that city officer proficient to where you're like, yeah, this person's ready? Like, how many hours a week? How many tens of thousands of dollars? Because most of those guys, you know how this goes, man. Most of those guys shoot a couple magazines a year. That's what's required for the minimum, right? But they really have this job that requires, I mean, especially because we're not going to have carbines in schools, to be proficient with a pistol like that, that's expensive. And as much as we don't want kids getting hurt, no one's like, I want to pay $150,000 a year to have this guy trained.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty close there. I would say at about $10,000 in ammo. Yeah. Probably about $30,000-$40,000 in instruction, and then maybe cumulatively 150 hours of work. Right. To get that person competent in active shooter.
And the other thing is you come with a body of knowledge that likely that deputy doesn't have. I mean, yes, they're proficient at loading, and maybe they yell out sports and they say slap, pull out loud as they try to correct a malfunction. But you're already at a level, like an expert level. I mean, so for the audience, he's a Bravo. He's a weapons expert. You can put a weapon in his hand. He's going to figure out how to take it apart, put it together, figure out what to do with it. So I would say an even order above that in terms of cost to get an RSO to be capable. It's a big bill to expect people.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard. So let's get past the shooter thing, and let's talk a little bit about that preparedness, not being a victim. I know for me, you go on a patrol, you have to have like a line, for me, I called it like a point of go. Like once we reach, because I'm really exposed a lot of times where it's me and a guy sitting there having chai. I don't have a body armor on because I'm trying to relate and create rapport, right? That's my job. But if I reach a certain point, I have to be prepared to go from calm, chilled out, drinking hot chocolate guy to the butcher of Baghdad in like a second to get out of a situation. He's smiling. People don't get this about people who operate in the kinetic space, where that like you can absolutely be at 2 chilling, having a good time, doing your non-lethal job, and then in a moment you have to be ready to flip that switch. Give us some context on what that is, what that's like.
I think mentally it's the ability to adjust in a gym environment, ever changing landscape where you're working with multi-agency, joint task force, different units, different guys like yourselves that will be attached to us, translators. And, I think a lot of people, when they watch movies and they see like John Wick and they see Jason Bourne, they see like on or off. You know, they see a dude like hanging out with his family, you know, feeling sad, wanting to hang out with his dog, you know, at a funeral. And then he's like doing awesome reloads and snapping rounds around corners. You know, he can run 4-minute mile at this altitude and all these other things. When in truth, you're kind of like weaving this line up and down this scale of I'm not going to say use of force, but like seriousness of the situation, right? Like I could be in that chai tea meeting with a bunch of warlords, and we're chilling, we're having a great time, and we're talking about like what our families are going to be doing or what our families are doing, what we're going to be doing next year, how the harvest is going. Then maybe the conversation doesn't go well because we're not going to be financing or supplying arms, and they start getting a little irritated. So, you know, the level of preparedness, you know, you could break it down into colors. And like maybe I was chilling in like a green to light orange, and then I'm like in orange moving to red. You know, I'm not quite to in go mode yet. And then like things go well again, and the conversation changes. You know, but that's you know, like half the time you're driving down the street and you're like, is that car on the side of the road a VBIED?
Right.
Or is that just a car that is broken down?
Yeah.
Is that a pile of trash? Is that dead dog have a mortar in it? So it's like you're always going like this, high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low. And the more that you do it and the more prepared you are, the more trained you are, the less of an issue it is to have these far extremes. Yeah. You know, where I can go to a crazy gunfight, people getting blown up, RPGs skipping off my hood, to walk into a village and pick up a baby and it not be a problem.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'm only seeing red and I just want to kill everything. Like that doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah. I'm thinking about a couple of different situations that we had where we actually had a firefight in Afghanistan. And when I say firefight, you know how a lot of these times there are people shooting at each other, but really nobody's being hit because the Afghans on both sides are like, we're about 800 yards out. Let's shoot, you know? And so you're like, you got to be careful, be mindful. We're going to run towards those bullets to make them stop shooting. But when I say gunfight, I'm talking about one of those really long range ones. But the whole time, like there's people talking, they're cracking jokes, but we're in a gunfight. You know, there's people moving tactically, but you reach that point of proficiency where you're able to still, even at that level in a gunfight, like this isn't a time for we're also at a small arms range really, you know, but it is funny how you can have, even in that moment, there's still a lot of room to move around before you have to act. And I want to welcome Longhorn 6, Scott Husing, best-selling author of Echo and Ramadi, into our chat. He just popped in.
Hey.
Scott, what about you? How did you sort that out? We're talking about that line of action where we were all friends and now it's fighting time. How do you – now you guys had Ramadi, so maybe you guys just kicked indoors and grabbed – but no, you had to talk to locals and try to set up firm bases and stuff. There's points where you are not in a zone for lethal action, but you have to be ready at a moment's notice to change your mind.
Yeah, every day. That was a common occurrence. Although we weren't setting up firm bases ourselves, that's the analogy I use. You literally have to go from 0 to 60 in one patrol. And you're doing that 10, 12 times a day. And then get those same young guys to go from 60 to 0 when it is time to de-escalate, interact with the people who were vital to give us information so we could continue to be successful at hunting and killing the bad guys.
So, Tim, we're talking about this point of decision and everything. When you're out, you guys primarily deal, and I'm talking doctrinally here, you guys primarily deal with indigenous forces and trying to build up their capacity. But in reality, the practical reality is you guys rotate in and fill the gap that the SEALs just held, and they'll backfill in to hold the gap that you just held. So how much doctrinal stuff did you guys do in Afghanistan and Iraq? How much of your time was spent doing your traditional mission versus a kinetic go grab guys at night kind of mission?
I think it's 50-50. You know, I think you have units within special forces that are specifically trained to do the time sensitive target, you know, whether it's DA missions or FID, like whether it's a JSET where we're there training a foreign country on tactics. I think it's a split right down the middle between how much time you spend on each. With Green Berets, it's mission first. The thing that dictates which one of those two things you're going to be doing, if it's more direct action or more training, like by, with, and through. I think ultimately, like we just have a better understanding of how to accomplish a mission, and then we just are able to have a rope long enough to either hang ourselves or successfully use our local counterparts to meet mission.
Hey, Tim, having worked closely with OCFI, ODA, Special Forces, talk to me about when well dries up or the FID is not going on, when you're not doing foreign internal defense, training locals, and you guys are living in that environment still. Do you guys step down and say, we want to do traditional infantry stuff now? And really there were guys that would talk amongst our ranks and say like, well, hey, those guys are tailored to do this. They shouldn't be doing our job and taking missions away from us, because we were the guys that went in with the big blunt instrument and smashed stuff up and really cleared the pathway or set security in some cases for Special Forces units to kind of move about the battlefield in an unharassed manner. Did you guys experience that at all or feel that way?
Yeah, I think it comes back down to the mission. If let's say we're at a fire base in Afghanistan, and our regional commander is wanting stability in there. So if we're able to train our Afghani partner nation, we're training a police force, we're training the local militia, and as you said, the well dries up. We're not really seeing the fruits of our labor, and there's not a lot of success from what they're doing. There's no there is not supposed to be any ego within Special Forces. Like if we're going to take off that Green Beret and put on like a conventional Army role and start doing force patrol, like showing like force presence, we absolutely do that. If again, that is supporting the mission of trying to provide stability within the region. A force patrol is a great technique for that, for them to see us, maybe even manning a checkpoint, doing an enforcement of curfew, teaching at the school, doing a health and welfare check at the local clinic, doing a veterinary, going down to a bunch of the farms and giving vaccinations and immunizations to the goats. Like there's a ton of ways to ultimately have mission success. And I think a good operator would happily do anything that would ultimately provide that success, even if that's doing the most conventional thing in the planet or hopping on a little bird, slipping down a rope and slitting somebody's throat in the middle of the night. It doesn't matter as long as you're able to successfully accomplish the mission.
Yeah, I don't think the general public really understand the breadth of stuff that not only regular soldiers do, but the Special Forces, the training they have. And it does go from anywhere from bungee cording through skylights and black pajamas to inoculating livestock on the battle. It's nuts. Like you could be a cop, you could be an insurance claims adjuster, you name it, man. So the follow-up I have to that is, you probably may or may not know, but me and Pete have a real close relationship to this day with our interpreters, some of the soldiers we fought with in Iraq, Afghanistan. And lately in the news, you saw we lost 3 service members, to, it was a homicide. I mean, the guy came in and infiltrated, didn't even infiltrate. He was part of the friendly forces package. And we've seen this time and again. How do you feel about that? And how do you feel like, should we break ties with what we're doing with our partner nations? Do we maintain that? I personally feel it's one of those things. It's a necessary evil we have to maintain. What are your thoughts?
The State Department hates DOD. They look at the military and they see a bunch of hammers and they think all the hammers see are nails. Like we just want to walk around and like pound things in. They don't have a lens of objectivity where they can understand the capability that we bring to the fight. I have been the one American with 100 Czech Special Forces guys going through Afghanistan. Like there is not American within 100 few hundred miles of me, and we're working with a European counterpart. I've also been there where I have a battalion of Afghanis, and like they are working for me. When they look at my kit, and they say, "Oh, what's that gun for?" "Well, that's my gun to shoot people that are really far away." Like, "Well, what's that gun for?" "Well, that gun is to shoot somebody that's like kind of getting close." They're like, "Well, what about that one?" "That gun is if this gun with that close person breaks." Like, "Oh, but what about that shotgun on your back?" I'm like, "That's for you. That's for you with the shovel that's in the back of my Humvee. Like, I will jump on a grenade to protect you. I will clean your children's feet. But if you cross me, I will kill you and every single person that you know." You can never lose the sharpness of the sword, no matter by, with, and through. If you're going to be there serving with them, protecting with them, inoculating their animals, teaching them how to read, I will do all of those things. But I'm still a warrior. I will follow the State Department's goals about how to achieve peace in that region. But you cross me, I'll burn your village to the ground.
Yeah, I think it is a double-edged sword, to use kind of that metaphor. Is we are put in a position where we want to put an Iraqi face on the operation, we want to put an Afghan face on it, and I even wrote, when we do that, we kind of assume this model of it's an inept face. It's not really capable, because as much as we've tried to train these forces, they just don't get it like we do. And until we get to that level of professional soldiering, I guess is a term I would use. I mean, it's one of those things where we have to align with the host nation forces, and we're kind of stuck with it as the guys at the tactical level. And I don't think a lot of, again, people in the public really understand how hamstrung we are. And at the end of the day, we can say, "Oh, they're evil, they're spies, they're trying to infiltrate, they're going to do us harm in the middle of the night." Look, if they want to kill us, they're going to kill us, right? So it's an assumed risk, I think.
Yeah, and that's okay.
I agree.
You look at the Americans in World War II fighting with the French resistance. Like they didn't know these guys. Like they barely spoke the language, but they're going to assume the risk, and that's something that I don't think anybody can understand unless they're there. Unless they have smelled what it smells like to be working in these places, and to show somebody how to really do proper personal hygiene for the first time, and learn their kids' names and not really be able to pronounce them yet, and try to understand the cultural nuances that go along with it. And as you're struggling through understanding how you're going to work side by side with these people that are just totally different than you, you first and foremost volunteer to be there, and you have assumed that risk. And it is a big risk, a risk that you can't understand until you've been there. And I don't really I hope people, that's kind of the thing, right? Like, we don't want people to have to understand how horrible it is sometimes. That's the point of serving. They can just live in ignorance and throw stones at us and be like, "Oh, they should have," they can be all the Monday morning or Monday night, Tuesday morning quarterbacks that they want. Ultimately, we're still going to be doing the job as best we can.
That service part is huge. We don't want our grandkids there. We don't want our kids there. We don't like to get this done one time, but it's tough. And here's the thing that I've noticed as a guy that stays and have units rotate in and out is the learning curve for the unit on the ground, right? Everybody thinks they've done a good, and everybody has the intention of doing the right thing. But the learning curve creates this maddening self-fulfilling prophecy where instead of fighting a counterinsurgency, we often become the insurgents where we undermine the very thing that we're trying to create. And so to be a little bit critical of operators that are out there, I've seen guys fall into the trap of Afghans are dumb, Iraqis are dumb, they don't live up to our level. Let's just change out the guy on top in power instead of finding out where the work is and getting to work at that level. It's real easy to have an outcome that you want, but it's really difficult to find that point where this guy needs to have some confidence. I mean, I don't know how many Iraqi officers I met that were boastful, but when you were private with them, they're like, "I'm terrified. I don't trust my commander. I want to go home and see my family. I want to be good at this, but no one wants me to be good at this." And so the work for me was not necessarily, of course, I'm going to do the work to try to make them proficient, but really I'm working at a level higher than they had the capacity to get to because they had so many other things distracting them. How does someone who interacts with the locals, How do you keep your perspective such that you don't get too far ahead, that you don't get too dismissive of the people that are expecting to be dismissed?
I think the first thing that you have to do is find common ground. That might be like when I'm in Africa, you know, it might be soccer, it might be rugby, it might be running, it might be complaining about the food, it might be like whatever. You know, it's finding something to build upon. The difficulty of dealing with the temperature, with the bugs, the lack of water, like whatever it is that you can start finding a shared problem, a shared interest. Oh, you have kids, I have kids. Building on that. I couldn't agree more. I hate it. It is so frustrating listening to, you know, a young guy coming to a team, getting deployed for that first, second, third time, and he's like, oh, he's stupid, you know, insert kind of racist, but definitely derogatory name for whatever your local counterpart is. You're like, oh, they wipe their ass with their hand, or like they squat when they poop, or like, you know, any of these things. And it's just a level of ignorance that you don't understand. It's a different culture. It's a different people. They've been raised differently. They have different access to absolute, like we have more that is not in common than we have in common. But ultimately, like, it's mission first. Like, how are you going to successfully accomplish this mission? And for me, it's always finding that common ground and finding more common ground and finding more common ground and finding more common ground and keep building upon that until ultimately all we talk about is what we have in common, not what's different about us.
Yeah, that's great. And you guys get trained a lot in culture, do a lot of training in that. That's actually pretty uncommon in the military for some reason. But I wanted to ask you, take the next step. So there's special operations going on across the river from us in Iraq, right? They're going cross province. So they're going from a province outside of Baghdad province, coming across the river into where I'm working, into my district area, and they're snatching up bad guys. And God bless, I want that to happen. But here's the problem. They were coming and grabbing him, and we would encounter these families and be like, we don't know what happened to Muhammad. He was here, and then he was gone. We're not sure what's going on. And so we were talking to the local authorities, you know, the local police guy, and he's like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who arrested that guy. I don't know. Maybe his brother's, you know. So there was a lot of uncertainty. And so we sent a report up saying, hey, if we're going to arrest people, the police around here would like to have some kind of a warrant, some kind of a notice, so that at least when the family came to them locally, that they could say, oh yeah, for sure, Muhammad got arrested. So the next night, someone got grabbed, and they took the warrant and a knife and jammed it into the kitchen table.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69.
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
Someone got grabbed, and they took the warrant and a knife and jammed it into the kitchen table. And you're like, that's sort of the right thing. But what happens then, right, is the locals have been separated from the government. They're no longer in charge. They're no longer a resource of power. And what we've done at that moment is, yes, we've potentially taken a bad guy off the battlefield, insert all the caveats that go in with that. But we've also told a family that it's not really their government that's doing it. It's something else. And they're farmers. These are simple people. Are we even supposed to bridge that gap, Tim? Is that even something we can worry about?
Yeah, we do worry about it, and we have to bridge that gap. You know, if something's gonna have an Iraqi or Afghani face, if something's gonna have an African face, it has to be done through them. And you also have to empower them. You have to trust them. You're like, oh, but like if I tell them ahead of time, there's gonna be an informant that is gonna tell, you know, our target, and then our target's gonna get blown. Like, can work through these problems.
Yeah, that's where the work is. Yeah.
They can get notified. You can have a separate unit that's notifying them as the target is being executed, so that, and you can give them all the right information and be like, okay, this person is being arrested. This is what they're being arrested for. This is, you know, we can't tell you where they're being taken, but like, they are going to be questioned. They are going to be in custody. Here are the facts. Here's the proof. Here is our evidence. Like all of these things we can easily give to them that gives them the proper face to be able to execute the mission and successfully build rapport with the locals and, hell, give freedom back to a bunch of struggling post-authoritarian victims.
I think one thing that's your experience has given you is, like most, it gives you so much perspective. How did that translate? Let's talk about how that translates into your fighting career. And like, I mean, do the timeline for me. Were you fighting and then you joined and then you came back and you fought some more? You just couldn't shake it. You're like, I'm going to keep crushing this. And like, you're racking up like a massive amount of wins too. And how was that transition for you? Like the separation of it, the involvement. I mean, everything you've done. I mean, listeners need to know, like, as a, mixed martial arts fighter and actor, and man, you like get around. I mean, they talk about military transition. Let's hear your story.
Oh man, I never know how to explain this because it sounds fantasy-ish. Like so you're a top 10 fighter on the planet, and 9/11 happens, and you're in the middle of grad school, and then you enlist. Yep, that's true. You go directly to special forces, and then you go to sniper school, and you go to ranger school, you go to Iraq, you go to Afghanistan, you go to a special counterterrorism hostage rescue unit within special forces, and you're working for them while you're fighting. Yep, that's all true. And then you start fighting for world titles, and so like it's but it's all true. And ultimately, the Army was a command sergeant major and a general. They were watching a fight one night. They're like, a ranger from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, is fighting on a main event on Fox right now. Okay, that's one of our guys. So I get brought into an office like, hey, what are we going to do? And we ultimately figure out the best way to have me fight while still being in special forces. I'm still in special forces to this day. I'll be deploying Q1 of 2019. I'm still fighting. I'm still a business owner. I'm still an entrepreneur. It's again, that narrow perspective, that lens that we look at our military through. It's like, oh, they're all hammers. They're not. There's lots of different people with nuanced lives and careers that do lots of different things. I host television shows. I make movies. I kill bad guys and knock people out.
Yeah, by the way, thanks for killing those bad guys. If I hadn't thanked you for your service, definitely appreciate what you do, because I have a lot of respect for all of the guys like us who have lived a lot of their life in the red zone. It's incredible that any of us are here, and so thank you for taking the time to do that and to continue to do it. God damn, dude, that's incredible. I wanted to ask you this. So you fought guys at the championship level. Michael Bisping, you've beat him, and he's been a title holder. So a while back, we interviewed Tony the Tiger Lopez. He twice won Fight of the Year. He fought Julio Cesar Chavez. I mean, he's an incredible guy. He's held the title in a couple of weight classes, and he is saying that the difference between 1 and 10, they're not comparable at all. This is in regular boxing. He's like, the difference between 3 and 1 is pretty substantial. That guy on top, they're in their time, and it doesn't mean that they're the best ever in that time frame. It's just their timing, their fitness level, their maturity was right, and there's quite a difference in terms of boxing and getting a shot and actually winning that fight. Is it the same thing in MMA where it seems like it's easier to lose because there's, like Sarah can go out and spinning back fist his way into a title, and you're like, whoa, how'd that happen? Not that he's not a great fighter, but it's a surprise when he wins that title. So how far is that title from you when you're at your level?
It's close on any given night. When you look at, I think it changes all the time. It's ever changing. Like if you look at the 185 weight class right now, my weight class, you look at the top 6 guys. Honestly, on any given night, all 6 of them could beat each other. Like that's how competitive it is, and in any myriad of different ways. It might be a submission, it might be a knockout. Like that's at the 185. That's how competitive it is. But then you get up to, let's say, the light heavyweight and heavyweight. We'll look at heavyweight with DC, Daniel Cormier, is the heavyweight champion. There's him at number 1. And like number 2, I mean, he's way down there.
Yeah.
You know, like there's no, like he has beat the brakes off of everybody that's ranked 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. But then 3 through 7 is really, really close. But again, it's like you said, the timing, the fitness level, the technique, when somebody's peaking, all these different things. It's the number of competitors, and that's a landscape that is ever changing.
Yeah,
every weight class is different. Every season is going to be different. Every fight is going to be different. The comparison between 185 and 265 right now, you have 1 through 6 that on any night, I think you could have a different champion compared to the heavyweight where there is not a chance number 2 through 6 would have not even a slugger's chance. I mean, like the betting odds would probably be up in the 500-600 range.
Right.
Because there's such a disparity of skill level.
Do you recall when Chael Sonnen fought John Jones and Jones had, I think, compound fractured his toe as the referee was calling the win for Jones? Do you remember this at all? His toe was making a 90-degree turn. I mean, that's how close it is. There's a guy who's literally getting his brains beat out, and they have to stop the fight before he gets hurt, while the guy beating him has a broken toe, where if the referee would have saw his toe, he would have said, stop everything. You got a bone sticking out of your body. I mean, it's that close to the championship versus losing, you know? Yeah.
I beat Robbie Lawler, just beat the brakes off of him. 3 fights later, he's the 170 champion.
Yeah.
You know, I absolutely destroyed Michael Bisping. You know, 5 rounds of, like, I outpunched him like 200 and something to 10. You know, had more takedowns against him than he has ever received in his whole entire fight career. And then I think 4 fights later, he's the world champion.
Yeah.
It's timing. It's, you know, there's a bazillion things that go into it. I will leave this world never have been a UFC world champion. You know, I fought for 2 world titles and lost 2 times.
Yeah. Well, and that's all right. I mean, you're still, you're a champion in my heart, Tim. I think you're the best. So my favorite guy that never was, but I wish was, I would have loved to have seen Alexei Karelin, the Russian Greco-Roman guy who would pick up his peers and dump them on their head. And so, and to prevent that, his peers would say, how about you just pin me? To see him in the ring at his size, his power, even though Greco was his thing, boy, it would have been amazing to watch that guy fight.
Yeah, a lot of single sport athletes have a real hard time, especially now transitioning into MMA. You know, in the early days, he probably would have seen a lot of success just because of his physicality and his technical ability in Greco-Roman wrestling. But now, the new generation of mixed martial arts fighters, they're good at everything.
Yeah, that's
true. You know, they're good at grappling. They're good at boxing. They're great at jiu-jitsu. They're just talented at all of it.
Hey, what do you think of the Liddell Ortiz fight? Did you tune in for that? I know which camp you kind of come from, so what do you think? Let's hear your thoughts on that, because I have my own, but just because of my friendships. But
yeah, I'm friends with both of them. You know, Chuck Liddell cornered me in a bunch of fights leading up into the beginning of my career. It's I don't like seeing either of them fighting still, but it's nobody's business to tell them when they need to be done. It's their choice.
Is it though? I mean, that Trevor Berbick Ali fight, you could see that he wasn't right. How does someone who loves him let him get in the ring?
It's your choice as a consumer. This is capitalism. You know, if you don't want to watch them fight, don't buy the pay-per-view. If the money isn't there to pay those fighters the amount of money that it takes for them to fight, then that fight won't happen. But it's a choice all around. You know, it's a fighter's choice to be there. It's a consumer's choice to buy that ticket. Nobody's forcing you to buy a $59 pay-per-view.
Yeah.
You know, I have a gun to your head being like, hey, Pete, you going to buy this fight? Ain't going to do it? You know? No, it's your choice.
Yeah.
So everybody has a choice here.
It's really interesting seeing behind the scenes of that, because through my nonprofit, Save the Brave, I've met Tito, and he lives, you know, up the street from me. I live in Temecula, which is where Dan Henderson's gym is, and I met him a little bit. But to see the relationship when that first started building up for this rematch, and the banter and the social media jabs, and then after all of that, with Tito coming out on top, you know, those two are still, again, professionals, they're shaking hands, they're complimenting each other. And it's nice to see that in a sport that is so violent to most spectators. I mean, it is brutal. I mean, it makes boxing look like the merry-go-round outside of Walmart compared to, anything traditional. So I was happy to see that too, to really bring the fan base together. So, I mean, I think we enjoy the same thing as, professional soldiers, as well as, you can fight all day, but at the end of the match or at the end of the rugby game, once you're off the pitch, you're all shaking hands, you're all drinking beers together. And that's really a cool thing within that sport.
Yeah, it is.
Hey, so what projects are you working on right now? Is it TV? I mean, obviously you're going to deploy soon, but until then, what are you working on?
I'm almost done with a book. I'm writing it's not like an inspirational, it's not a leadership, it's not a military biopic. It's like, here's examples of all the things I did super dumb in my life, and here's how you can do those things better.
So chapters 1 through 25 are the dumb stuff I did, and then all the rest are how to get better at it.
Yeah, that's the idea. So book is kind of top of the list right now, time wise. Obviously, we're in a big retail season. I have a bunch of retail companies, Ranger Up and Whoobies and Sheepdog Response, that I'm working a lot trying to make sure that we have a successful Christmas. And then 2019 is going to be back to just balls to the wall. We have more television. We have I'm going to be helping the Army with recruiting. I have another company that we're going to be launching in 2019. So it's just work,
Yeah. More. You guys can find Tim on Twitter at Tim Kennedy MMA. Same thing on Instagram. He's not hard to find. He's out there. He's always on someone's podcast. He's always participating. Scott, do you have any more questions for Tim?
No, I'm glad I could hop in on this. I think it's you got so much going on. I mean, just growing up, did you ever think, you'd be doing what you do today, or have done what you've done? Was that the kid you saw growing up?
Yeah, man. You look at I went to North County Christian School. It's a private school, and in kindergarten, you write in a book what you're going to do. I said I was going to be an Army Ranger, parachutist, pilot, sniper, karate guy. I wrote all of that in the book.
Are you a pilot?
Yeah.
That's great.
We still have it. Well, there'll be a picture of it actually in the book. I hope I'm going to be more successful, because I definitely want to have a bigger impact on this country of ours, and have a positive effect on the landscape of the direction of what we're going to be doing. But as things stand, I'm just getting started. This is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to work.
So how do you help the country out? We talk about him pretty much every show Scott and I do together, because we think the world of him. But Sebastian Younger gave us all a tasking, and he said, you need to get people to rally in the middle. We're too divided. We can't agree on where we're going, and you guys don't need to be overseas serving as much now. Let's get back home and help us to understand what we have here. So how does Tim Kennedy do that? I mean, you're a libertarian, so you already make everybody mad because you're a damned hippie. You're a damned, conservative. So everybody's mad at you already. So what do you do to help rally? How can I help you help people rally?
That's so true, though. I was on Lance Armstrong's podcast right after the Florida active shooter. And we're talking about 19-year-olds having access to assault rifles, and the right lost their mind. Like, somehow I am anti-Second Amendment. That Tim Kennedy doesn't think a 19-year-old should have a gun. I was like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying somebody with mental issues that is on a handful of drugs, that's known by the FBI, that's known by the school, that's known by the sheriff's department, that's known by his teachers, known by his friends, maybe he should have access, which is two totally different things. But that conversation alone, which should have been a very unifying opportunity for far end spectrums, from far conservative Second Amendment gun lovers, not for my dead hands, to nobody should be able to have access to a gun ever. There's a great opportunity to have a conversation in the middle there. The most curious thing to me is I was attacked by both sides. The left was being like, nobody should have guns. You shouldn't have guns. You didn't come far enough. And then the right was like, you're anti-Second Amendment. You're anti-gun ownership. I'm like, we're just having a conversation, crazy people. Just relax. What do? I try to find a conversation, a middle ground where people can talk. Whether it's chai tea in Afghanistan or a game of soccer in Africa or the Lance Armstrong podcast talking about gun control, I'm down for any of it, but ultimately the conversation has to happen, and you can't get your panties in a bunch just because you don't like what somebody's saying.
How'd you know I was wearing panties? Yeah, well, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on. It means a lot. Let's do some more of this stuff. And if you're ever interested in having some higher level political conversations, I'll grab us a political scientist, and we'll lean on them and see what we can figure out, because those guys are pretty smart, and it's fun to push on them from the practical side that we come at things from. It's one thing to say change the Second Amendment, that I'm going to say, well, where are you going to get the votes? There's actual rules you have to do.
Yeah, there's a law. We're a country of laws. Enjoy those laws.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. God bless America. Thanks for having me.